Living in Portugal is becoming impossible. A country once praised for its affordable lifestyle, stunning coastlines, and warm climate is now battling a perfect storm: a housing crisis, a cost of living crisis, and growing public anger over immigration and foreign influence. 10 years ago, Portugal was a haven for locals and foreigners alike. In Lisbon, property could be bought for around €1,000 per square meter. Today, try over €2,500, with some listings hitting €5,000 in central neighborhoods. That's a 150% to 250% price increase. And wages haven't kept up. In 2024, Portugal saw its largest housing protest in modern history. Tens of thousands took to the streets, not against politicians, but against tourists, landlords, and foreign investors. Many locals now find themselves priced out of their own cities. Families are being displaced. Young adults are stuck living with their parents, and whole neighborhoods have transformed into ghost towns of empty Airbnbs and luxury flats owned by foreigners. Portugal's crisis is no longer a forecast. It's here. So, how did it come to this? What are the real causes behind this shift? And most importantly, can it still be reversed? Let's find out. Portugal is in the middle of a historic housing crisis, and it's only getting worse. Between 2015 and 2025, rents in Lisbon increased by 94%. Property prices up by 186%, according to official data from Confidential Imobiliário. In cities like Porto and Faro, the trend is the same. The cost of shelter, something basic, has become a luxury. The situation is especially dire for low and middle-income families. Over 50% of Portuguese workers earn less than €1,000 per month, while a basic one-bedroom apartment in Lisbon now costs around €1,200 in rent. That means more than half the country can't even afford to live in its own capital. But it's not just about prices, it's about availability. Despite Portugal having one of the highest housing stock rates in Europe, 1.4 dwellings per household, a massive portion of those homes sit empty, owned as vacation properties, Airbnb rentals, or speculative investments. In some Lisbon neighborhoods, up to 60% of housing is now short-term rental. New construction isn't solving the problem. In the past decade, Portugal had one of the lowest construction rates in Europe, with just 11 new homes per 1,000 residents. Zoning laws, construction noise regulations, and environmental protections slow down development. Add bureaucratic red tape, and it's clear why supply isn't keeping up with demand. Meanwhile, many Portuguese are forced to move out of cities, commute for hours, or live with family far beyond their 30s. In fact, as of 2022, over 50% of 25 to 34-year-olds still live at home. Not out of comfort, out of necessity. And despite all of this, housing is being treated less like a human right and more like an investment vehicle for foreign wealth. The result? Locals are being pushed out, replaced by digital nomads, wealthy expats, and absentee landlords. This is what displacement looks like in 21st century Portugal. In 2012, Portugal launched what seemed like a clever economic solution: the Golden Visa program. The idea? Offer residency permits to wealthy non-EU foreigners in exchange for significant investments, primarily in real estate. At first, it worked. The program brought in over €7 billion in investment, and Portugal became a global hotspot for foreign capital. But that success came at a steep cost. Roughly 90% of the Golden Visa money went straight into the housing market. Investors weren't building factories or creating jobs. They were buying up properties. Often, they didn't even live in them. Many homes were renovated and left empty, or flipped repeatedly to meet the visa's €500,000 minimum investment threshold. The result? An artificial inflation of property prices. In fact, after the program launched, property transactions at exactly €500,000 increased by 60%, indicating strategic pricing to meet visa requirements. For locals, this meant being locked out of the market. Housing became a financial asset, not a place to live. The program's damage was so severe that the government was forced to act. In 2023, after mounting public backlash, Portugal officially ended the golden visa's real estate option. But by then, it was too late. Prices had already skyrocketed and speculation had become the norm. Even today, the effects linger. Entire neighborhoods have been transformed into luxury investment zones, completely disconnected from the reality of Portuguese life. Critics call it legal gentrification, a policy that sold out Portugal's cities to the highest bidder. It wasn't just about immigration. It was about priorities. And for a decade, the priority was money, not people. Portugal's tourism industry is booming, but for many locals, it feels more like a curse than a blessing. Since early 2000, Portugal has positioned itself as one of Europe's top travel destinations. The results speak for themselves. In 2024, the country welcomed around 30 million tourists, 3 times its population. Lisbon and Porto, once local cultural hubs, now function like open-air theme parks for foreign visitors. Tourism now accounts for nearly 20% of Portugal's GDP, one of the highest rates in Europe. But while money is flowing in, the benefits are not evenly distributed. High-end hotels, short-term rentals, and tourist services generate profits mostly for developers, landlords, and international platforms like Airbnb. The local impact: devastating. Entire neighborhoods have been converted into short-term rentals, making long-term housing increasingly scarce. In historic districts of Lisbon, over 60% of properties are now used for tourism. And then came the digital nomads, remote workers lured by Portugal's tax breaks, lifestyle, and cost of living. In 2022, the government introduced a digital nomad visa, requiring applicants to earn at least €2,800 per month, more than 3 times the Portuguese minimum wage. This has created a two-speed economy, one for well-paid foreigners and one for locals left behind. Coffee shops, co-working spaces, and even grocery stores are shifting their prices toward international standards, outpricing the community that once sustained them. While tourism and remote workers inject capital into the economy, they've also transformed cities into exclusive zones for the global elite. The very things that made Portugal attractive, affordability, authenticity, and community, are now at risk of disappearing. Portugal is still a paradise, just not for the people who live there. One of the most alarming aspects of Portugal's crisis is the growing disconnect between wages and living costs. While property prices and rents have exploded, wages have barely moved. According to Eurostat and Portugal's National Statistics Institute, over half of Portuguese workers earn less than €1,000 per month. The minimum wage in 2025 sits at around €840 per month, one of the lowest in Western Europe. Now consider this: the average rent for a one-bedroom apartment in Lisbon is €1,200. That's more than the entire income of many full-time workers. In cities like Porto and Faro, the numbers aren't much better. This mismatch means that even skilled professionals, nurses, teachers, civil servants, are struggling to get by. Saving for a home? That's a fantasy. Many young adults have given up on independence altogether. By 2022, over 50% of people, aged 25 to 34, were still living with their parents. Not by choice, but out of financial necessity. Portugal's wage problem isn't new. For decades, the country has lagged behind in developing high-value industries. While tourism, retail, and services boomed, these sectors often offer low-paying, precarious, and seasonal jobs. Meanwhile, investment in education, tech, and manufacturing has been underwhelming. The result is one of the highest rates of wealth inequality in the European Union. The rich, especially foreign investors and property owners, are getting richer, while average Portuguese families fall further behind. The crisis isn't just about housing. It's about a broken system where working full-time no longer guarantees a dignified life. As rents soared and wages stagnated, the patience of the Portuguese people finally snapped. In 2024, Portugal witnessed one of the largest housing protests in its modern history. Tens of thousands took to the streets in Lisbon, Porto, and Faro. chanting not just against landlords or politicians, but against a broken system. Signs read, "Homes are for living, not for profit," and "Portugal is not for sale." But this wasn't just about housing. It was a collective scream from a generation that feels priced out of its own country. Public trust in the government has plummeted. A 2025 national poll found that over 65% of citizens believe the government has failed to protect them from the housing crisis. Many accuse officials of prioritizing tourism, foreign investors, and digital nomads over the needs of their own people. In response, grassroots movements are emerging. Citizens are forming housing co-ops, organizing community protests, and even squatting in empty investment properties to make a statement. In Lisbon, one activist group occupied a luxury apartment building left vacant for years, demanding it be repurposed for affordable housing. Even online, the backlash is growing. Social media is filled with viral videos exposing exploitative landlords, overpriced listings, and the stark contrast between tourist luxury and local poverty. For many, these protests aren't just about rent. They're about dignity, about the right to live where you're from. Portugal's people are fighting back. Whether their leaders are listening is another question. Portugal is no longer the hidden gem of Europe. It's a frontline example of what happens when global capital collides with local life. The country that once offered simplicity, affordability, and community is now gripped by a crisis that threatens its future. Homes have become assets, neighborhoods have become commodities, and the people who built Portugal? Many can no longer afford to stay. This isn't just a story about Portugal. It's a warning to other countries walking the same tightrope of tourism, foreign investment, and rising inequality. The question now is clear. Will Portugal reclaim its cities for its people? Or will it continue selling its soul to the highest bidder? What do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.